Hey, you're live. It's September 18th, 2023, and we're coming together today as a little bay. Do you want to start with highs and lows? Yeah. I'll share what I'd been talking about earlier, both a high and a low. I slept a lot today, which was unexpected, but as it goes, was necessary or important for one reason or another. But the low is I had terrible dreams, just like the sort of dreams that are like socially poking at insecurities and fears. And it's good because it surfaced stuff that I know I've been anxious about or worrying about, but it's bad because I want to hang out with my friends or the people that I love in nice ways and not in ways that are full of like strife and anxiety and conflict. But that's what my dreaming was like throughout all this sleeping this morning. Popcorn, Orión, do you want to share highs and lows?
I was struggling to think of a low, and so I have a minor kind of roadblocky annoyance that I've like built this. I got the wave generator, the ripple tank machine, and the motor to drive it like has is high enough voltage and amperage that I needed a stronger transformer than I transistor that I currently have. And there's a guy on local Craigslist who was selling several different transistors that would work, and he just would not get back to me. And so it's like, and I thought it would be faster to get it from him because I wouldn't have to get it shipped from Boulder or New York, where like the two places they know to order from are. But it's been a full week now that I've been waiting for him to reply. So now it's going to be 2 weeks before I get this transistor, so that I can actually like have fine speed control over the ripple tank generators. But yeah, so the high point was I went to one of my partner's birthday party in Victorville, which is like this rural high desert place about like an hour and a half from LA. And it was like this beautiful, like watching the sunset in the desert, and then like people brought instruments and percussion, and we just sort of like drummed and sang and then did a little fire ritual, and it was lovely. So that'll do it. Charlotte.
Good to see you guys. Sorry that there wasn't a broadcast last night. That's okay. I guess a low for me was I was sick with something viral, and it took me a really long time to get over it. And I'm doing better now though. And a high, just my general mood has been good, and there have been some improvements at work. I'm thankful for small wins every day, and thankful to be here. Entangler.
Thanks, Charlotte. It's good to see everyone. Yeah, the radio show. I'll talk about that later. That was funny. It's like third time's a charm. Okay. But let's see. Low is that I have to like, I feel like I'm a juror for this grant, and it's just like a lot of work, and it stresses me out. But I also am like, oh, it's so important, like, because I've applied to many things and always hope that the jurors are like, like giving it their all, or like really, like being very, I don't know, present with the applications. And so I want to do that. It's just like a lot of writing, and I think it's like so stressful that like I haven't done it. And now I have done like 5 out of 73, and it's due like a week from Tuesday. And so I like, it's like I feel like I want to cry a little bit. So that, and I also like has my having also a friend who also sometimes works for me, who also is like the person that I was in love with for 4 years, helped me on this. It's also like complicated, and I was like, oh, this is a great learning experience for this person. And it's just like turned out to be some fighting, and I don't know, it's just like so like this thing that I was trying to get help with, and also trying to, I don't know, it was just like been this, now it's just like a big giant mess of applications that I have to do. So stressful. So it's fine. I'll just have to stay up all night if I have to. And then, but a high is, I don't know, my fielding and my kink stuff is fun and good. And the one daddy that I really like is talking to me again. So I'm like really excited. Although I don't know what that means really. It's just that I'm like, oh yay, daddy's back. So that's fun. And that's it. Okay, so update. Oh yeah, I was thinking I did this thing for highs and lows, because I was like thinking about this for my class about like, how we do highs and lows, and then I was like, oh, maybe we like, I don't know if it's really applicable to this group, but just thinking about like life lessons through our highs and lows. Sharing that might be kind of interesting.
I like that.
Okay, cool. Maybe we do that next time then. Okay, updates and announcements. I'll just start with the KCHUNG. So KCHUNG is it's gonna, I guess we could have broadcasted, like Kern, the person who it helps manage it, found someone to let me in, but it was like kind of a little bit too late. And then plus I was like feeling a little sick. Oh, that's the other thing that was kind of like highs and lows. Like one of my students tested positive for COVID, and I was hanging out with them in my mentee group, and but I had a mask on for most of the time. But then I still kept feeling like I was sick. I was like, am I sick? I'm not, and tripping out. So I was kind of feeling not good yesterday either. So I was like, oh, it's fine. I asked Brady if we could also just do it next month, because I don't know, it would have started later and stuff. And then also my friend had a birthday party, so that's gonna happen next month. But now it's gonna happen for real. The third time it's gonna happen. Knock on wood. Thanks Orión for coming. I Gradient mentioned that you were there. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to hang out with Gradient for half an hour, 45 minutes or something.
Oh, good. That's fine. And then so we had also a tinyhealth danger room on at Rev School that both Charlotte and Orión were at. I don't know if everyone knows the danger room terminology. Danger room is like it's pulled from the X-Men training center, superhero training center. So danger room is like, it's like this really elaborate training center that actually becomes a sentient entity and then tries to kill the X-Men later on. So it's kind of interesting because it like then becomes like, I don't know, sentient or alive. But we use danger room in Rev School when we have to like talk through maybe difficult conversations. A lot of it, like for example, when we did our money danger rooms and having to go through our budget, and like every time like money stuff comes up, it's often a danger room. So we like use that term as like we're coming together as like training, like we're training to be revolutionaries or whatever, or like superheroes. And like so yes, it's just terminology to use when we have like maybe difficult conversations. And I mean, it was originally like the way that Reframer thought of it was like we had like our superpower, like our powers and our vulnerabilities, and it would be kind of like D&D where we would like have to talk through our powers to kind of process stuff. We've never fully done that, but it seems super fun to maybe do in the future, especially after all you have your player cards. And it's like a way to kind of like, like use our superpowers or our vulnerabilities and kind of like fine tune them or like work through them and work as we're actually processing through stuff. But anyways, we had a discussion on tiny health. I don't know if I to recap if Charlotte and Orión, if you have ways to recap it, but I think a lot of it came from Nine, and I had a conversation and about just tiny health as the company and like what it is, how it is scripting the gut tests in relation to things like, for example, like C-sections or catering to moms, with babies, and like Nine having like a lot of experience with Charlotte, I'm sure you too, with just like, like medicine, like health, medicine, medical industrial complex, all that stuff. And then like companies, like businesses that are like within that or trying to provide a service to people, but then it kind of is like for commercial businesses and like, I don't know, like there's certain things that were kind of like red flags or something for Nine. So we talked through that. I don't know how do you all feel about that? Charlotte and Orión, about that conversation. Curious.
I'm really glad that she had a platform to express her concerns. And there's so much about medical ethics that doesn't get examined, I think, because consumers and patients feel helpless and they're often not treated, even with the respect to an average consumer would get. And Nine is clearly very aware and very experienced with different facets of being a patient. So, I had been so gung-ho about pretty gung-ho about tiny health and feeling very trusting, especially because of the maternal slant that they put on their product. And I'm just glad that we all had the opportunity to slow down and more carefully consider what it would represent to be involved with that company. And is it the best idea, or are there any potential downsides? So I felt good. Nine seemed to worry that I would be offended or something by the danger room that we had, but no, I didn't feel anything like that.
I was glad to be having the conversation too. I think actually in prep for the radio show yesterday, I reviewed much of TFT1 and all of the multiple times where people in that are saying like slow things down, think about the ethics, like again, and they were talking about the AI ethics, which is also something that I feel we've glossed over at the moment, and we're kind of not, maybe we're not focusing on Bay exactly at the moment, but I think, yeah, having spent a lot of time in these, like, I haven't worked in medical technology startups, but I've worked in technology startups, and like they're all like, I accepted that compromise going in, but I think making sure, like, I think having had that conversation with the Revolution School was definitely worth having, and because it is a necessary conversation to have. Like, what are the ethics, and what are these people putting something into the world that we want to have in the world? And thing in this particularly constrained way, yes.
Yeah. I like for me, like I don't think I ever really trusted Tiny Health, but and also like not really like the data that we get, or just having little conversations with people about like the gut. Like I think it's really complex, and like I think like it's like limited what we can get with a stool sample, because it's like really the bacteria that's located in their colon, or like it's, and like I think different parts of your digestive system have different like congregations of different types of bacteria, da, da, da. So I'm not like the company I don't trust, but also but I also don't trust a lot of companies like that. And then also the data I don't trust, but I also don't trust a lot of data in general. And so for me, it became about like, oh, we're doing something together. Like it's just something that we do. And to do something that would give us some data, even if it's not like accurate or whatever, that is a starting point for us to just, do something materially or something.
I was just also very excited to take a step with you guys.
Yeah. And I feel like that, I mean, it's so it's like, it's like, like, where do we make, boundary making practices? Like, where do we make the boundary? Because like, basically there's nothing that's not, or maybe there is something that's untouched, in terms of like not somehow connected or interrelated to all the like, all of modernity and coloniality and all these like these institutions and systems. And I don't know if there is way, but that's also, I feel like, feels like a cop out too. So like, I don't know. It's complicated, complex.
I'm wondering through what I think and feel coming from this, and I feel like I gotta, if that prompt brings up anything else for any of y'all, then I'm curious on that too. But just wanted to say that I'm sitting on it and would like to I think there's some stuff emerging, if it's okay for us to have a little bit more time in this conversation. Really, what you said in Tingler about like it was something to do together, and Charlotte, I heard you kind of echo in your way too. I agree with, I mean, I feel that too. And there's like an ease to getting provided that structure by the program that is tinyhealth, and by all the associations that there are with the sort of data that we'd receive. And there's a lot of, it's kind of hard to make to determine that structure ourselves sometimes. And it's like I like that direction of having like this gut data from tinyhealth, feels like it engages curiosity in me, and like excitement in anticipating a gift, and also like the like cheer or something of doing something together in that sense. And there are infinite ways to have those feelings, or have other feelings that are no worse, or like have there are other things that could come around to engage in curiosity, and that the excitement and giddiness that this direction with tinyhealth would have been in. There are associations that I have with determining our own structure within our Thinky feely tank that's kind of feels kind of like a hefty boulder for some reason, where it's like I have a hard time reaching decisive for now conclusions when it comes to like what sort of structure we hold together here, or what sort of what directions we choose to play in or to think and feel in. And there's an association with receiving gut data that is like opens up like this sort of like science test kit, experiment kit playfulness that I think is all based on bullshit. And so it's cool that we can find other ways to do that instead. And also they're just strong associations with that, of like that being a certain kind of play and a certain kind of legitimized play, that the in some sense the easier thing is to play in that way, but then the harder and more worthwhile thing in some ways is to find the like truer ways to play instead. Yeah.
What is that? You know how it's like the stickiness, or the of when you're talking about like the structure of this group, or some kind of feels like a sticky something, or well, I don't know. For some reason, I'm talking about boulder, but I think I was just talking. You didn't say boulder. Did you say boulder?
I did say boulder.
Oh, you
I want
did
to
say
hear
boulder.
what. Yeah, I want to hear what you're thinking about sticky. I didn't say sticky, and so in sticky was something that you connected.
Yeah. I think maybe I was feeling sticky.
Yeah.
Like the conversation we had in Rev School, and then kind of like recapping it, I noticed like a loss, like me being like I loss of words, or like what is it that I'm trying to, what is the thing that feels hard or something, and like and sticky, so it feels like molasses or something, or like and I want to get to that thing, but I don't know how or something. And I'm wondering, like, because like Nine and I had a long ass conversation before our Rev School when they brought it up, and that I don't know, it's interesting, maybe because like Nine and I have like we're friends, and so we can talk very openly, and we can both express. Like I was like, let's just fucking do it, like fuck this shit, like like it's just for fun, and then they'll come back and be like, but and they're like Virgo nest, and I'm like, I'm so much a Virgo. But I also like, I think it's their superpower that they like can bring up this shit, and they will just like like talk about fine tuning. The thing about the detail when we go into fine detail, how like last time, David, you mentioned it's like when someone has a bodily feeling, right? We can use the geometric optics, until someone has a bodily feeling. So then like that's an example of Nine having a bodily feeling that we had to go into the fine detail. And then, but then once in the fine detail coming to this thing, it felt sticky. It felt like sticky or something like I in terms of like I didn't know what is the right thing to do or something. Like, okay, in terms of like, yes, if we know this company is fucked up, which we don't know, maybe it's fine, like, is that like, do we not do that because of that? And like, and then it's also like connected to like Nine's experiences, or for it's hard to disconnect it from that, and so then it feels like, oh, is it endorsing this endorses that whole that whole mission and like, and I also am having a trouble with words, I think, because I'm tired right now. And then you mentioned something about, David, like the boulder or whatever, of how this group makes decisions, or like how it structures.
Determining our structure rather than having structure kind of determined by the program that Tiny Health would provide.
I see. Okay.
We're not bad at it. It's just sometimes it feels like a boulder, I think. It's to me.
Yeah, same. Yeah. And I'm like interested in that murkiness or something, but I'm not really quite sure how to get to it or what it is actually that I'm referring to. And I would be interested in somehow being able to get there and articulate it somehow. Yeah.
I mean, I think there is a I think I've certainly been doing a lot of stuff with a do-it-yourself kind of ethic, right? Like, I think, I mean, I've managed to find like a science classroom Ripple tank that would be only like $300 instead of the $1,000 of the first one I saw. But like, I don't like, part of like being intimately connected with the apparatus, right? The details matter is part of it, and so I think the intermediation that is happening with Tiny Health, like I can see how that does kind of alienate us from the apparatus and the process and the details. And I think it also gives us this other set of details to dive into. But like, Rosalind Franklin's like discovery of DNA was through a diffractive method, like a literally diffractive methodology, and we don't get to practice that. I don't even know if they're sequencing it. I'm sure they're not just sequencing it visibly or visually. Today I could be wrong. I don't know. So, and everything else I've been doing, I've managed to do it myself. Like getting this vintage ripple wave generator. It's like, yeah, but I got a broken one, so I have to fix it. So, and I've like completely taken it apart and put it back together, and that's not something we can do with this gut biome sequencing. And and we know that what's in our stool is not the whole story. So that's what's resonating for me with that question.
Oh my God, I love the thing about the apparatus. How we're not like, the apparatus is like hidden from us, or like we don't have access to the apparatus. That's so good. Maybe that is like the feeling that I was having, or like the suspicion or something. I totally, if I would totally be down to do biohacking as a group on our own. Like, I'm like very interested in that, but that's also like, I don't know, like kind of intense.
I'm down too, though.
Can you give me an example of what that means, Jennifer? Like what some DIY biohacking would look like for us?
Yeah, like when I first started learning about like fecal transplant swapping, I don't know what it's called. I call it fecal transplant swapping, but yeah, so people who have like C. diff or like some, it's been used for C. diff pretty effectively. So I watched this video of this guy, and it's very recent that it's been like approved FDA. So people before that were had to do it on their own. So DIY kind of underground with these like kind of groups that form. And this is something that's interesting also in terms of like, I think what Nine brings up about the mothers, like a lot, like in their research when because they have Crohn's and also an autoimmune disease, and also also the doctors had a hard time, like this common story of with Charlotte you've gone through, of like having to see many doctors, not knowing what it is, and so she found a lot of resources through these mothers who came up with their own kind of like remedies or like ways in which to kind of
With special diets.
I don't know the details, but it's just interesting about these like the knowledges or something that are produced in these kind of underground groups that form because there's a lack of access or whatever. And so I watched this video of this guy who did it to himself, of repopulating his gut microbiome, because I think he had C. diff. So like it was like a whole process, like taking all these antibiotics, like like kind of like flushing out of the system, and then and then taking the I think I'm not sure if he did it through an enema. I think it was through an enema. But yeah, and then he kind of like documented the whole process and did it all himself. So that's the only example I know, but I know there's like many I don't know, Lob just told me about these group of eunuchs, who like these people who cut off their genitals or penis and their balls, and because they want to be eunuchs for whatever reason, and that has to be done, I think, a lot through like underground, because unless you get like some kind of note saying you have body dysmorphia or whatever, like I don't think most doctors would just do that. So then they had to like come up with their own system, and so they what stuff that Lob was sharing, so they had like veterinarians or people who have some kind of experience doing that would then become cutters for this community to cut the genitals off. So there's so I think that's like really interesting. And would be down to try doing that ourselves. I don't know. I don't know about cutting off my genitals, but
I've heard that when all the shit goes down in the apocalypse, like you want with you a veterinarian rather than a doctor, because vets are used to like making do and biohacking. Like you can't transplant a pig heart, but they have they have to make their own stuff out of whatever they can find, because too many animals and like humans are more standard comparatively.
no, you know any veterinarians? I like secretly am making my apocalypse list of the people that I want on my team.
Oh, Charlotte, you're muted.
Oh.
Maybe Nine is onto something with her desire to speak to somebody about horses.
Right.
Or their desire, sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. It'd be really interesting to ask that industry connect person just in this direction of like altering bodies There's so much that I've been taught through what is, I feel like, in the era of mainstream cultures, to just stay away from that, to not take on any ownership of knowledge around like really altering bodies. That's up to the doctor, because doctors know best. And I wonder if this whoever our horse person connect might be, if they do anything surgically, if they might just have one perspective of many on that could start creating a different understanding.
And like doing this tiny health could just be like the start of something that maybe, and then we're like, maybe eventually we'll be like body hacking or something. Oh God, now I'm like, wait, is body?
We shouldn't be live streaming that.
Huh?
If we do that, we're gonna have to stop live streaming.
Yeah.
I'm also like now wondering if body hacking is kind of like an ableist thing. I guess it depends on what it is for. Yeah. I don't know if I shared this with this group, but I've shared it with other people. But I had this like fantasy of cutting off my arm and having like a bionic arm. And so that was like going to be a performance I did, and then realized like, oh shit, that's so ableist that I could just like fantasize about cutting off my arm and making an art project about it, and like romanticizing this like, prosthetic art, like being a cyborg or something.
And we all should have bodily autonomy, and society should be, should adapt to all abilities. Like it shouldn't have to be a thing, but because of the world we live in, it's just like, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
I had just had total like high thought. What if one day the robots are microscopic prosthetic, like bacteria or something? The prosthetics are so tiny, and they've come up with these synthetic robotic super biomes that like don't even exist, but that's part of a medical intervention, and they can implant them in any organ system to alter or improve how it functions. I just imagine these little cellular sized robots going to work in our bodies. I don't know. It's not that far out. I told reminded Entangler that when I first started participating in process group, I was fighting to get Medi-Cal to pay for me to get this shot called Xolair, which is a biologic drug. It's engineered mouse proteins that are designed to like plug holes in my cells that were releasing too much histamine and other inflammatory chemicals. So like my body didn't, I was constantly having life-threatening allergic reactions, and they've devised this monthly injection that is made out of mouse protein amino acids to actually block the cells from being able to degranulate, they call it. And I just imagined my body being full of like little mouse fragments of mice like floating through my bloodstream every month, going to protect me. So I don't know, stuff like that is out there. I guess it's not that high of an idea, but
yeah.
Well, I think the part is like the prosthetics on the bacteria, or like that's like so interesting to think about. Like prosthetics on little cells, on microbes or something.
Kind of awesome. I like it.
Because they could
Yeah.
go into your gut and fix the tight juncture issue. People talk a lot about having leaky gut and how you can develop allergies because some of the proteins, get into your bloodstream through the gut wall. And yeah, what if we had these little construction robots that were part of a super biome that go into your gut and organs and like patch up areas that are degraded and like leaking information into your bloodstream that's not supposed to be there, or like rebuilding cellular tissue that's getting destroyed by cancer. They could do all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Mohammed, this person that I met through a friend who's a bioengineer, Mohammed Abedi, he's come to my class a couple times to give a lecture on his research, but they do that with viruses. Like they take viruses and they basically like carve them out, like hollow them out and put a payload in them, and then they use the virus to carry like a payload to like cancer cells that then release. And I think they even use like Atari or Nintendo controllers. They like reprogram. They like, and this is like seems very DI. I could see like Orión, you doing this or something, like taking a Nintendo and like the console and like programming it to like so you can control the virus or something. It's very interesting. Yeah. So it's kind of similar to what you're talking about, I think, Charlotte.
That's cool.
That's also
It's cool.
putting the payload into the virus is how CRISPR works also.
Oh. Into a virus specifically? CRISPR?
I believe that's like when we were looking over that the other week. I think I noticed that, and I think that's the case.
I think maybe I don't quite understand a CRISPR.
In last semester of engineering school, my final semester of engineering school, I had a course that involved biology, and that's what like kickstarted finally me like thinking that biology was interested, because we were talking about molecular biology, and there's a way that they characterize viruses and the way that viruses carry information that's distinctly different from the like double helix of DNA. It makes me really and related to CRISPR and altering genes and this sort of thing. I'm gonna try next time we come together to just be a little bit more up to date on that information, my notes, and in case it comes back around to relevant. It's fascinating. Viruses are fascinating.
Viruses are fascinating. Yeah. And they're not considered living because they don't reproduce on their own. And that's an interesting definition of what is living. Because that's kind of like you have to reproduce in order to be considered a living thing or be able to reproduce on your own. It can reproduce, but it has to like attach itself to a cell that then reproduces.
Are viruses carbon-based? Because I've always heard about carbon-based life forms.
Yeah, what does that mean? I never question what carbon-based life forms mean. What is that? Look it up.
I think they are carbon-based. Like, I don't know if I can expound on it.
Something to add to our notes or our agenda for next week. What is a life form? Is it
Yeah.
Are we, I don't know, is there the with the conversation about tiny health, is there more that anybody's more completion that anybody wants to reach today, or is it are we going to leave it at this state of where it is now? I'm content. I feel complete with it myself, but
Me too. Yeah. And where we left it, I mean, after having the conversation, just filling you, David, on Rev School, we had the conversation, but then it passed. I think so we're still going to proceed with it. And so now what we're at is, I think, we're trying to figure out how to pay Tiny Health through Open Collective. So Gradient I'll reach out to Gradient because Gradient is also working on a project with someone who's also an Open Collective, and she thinks that I think they use. So she's gonna ask them, and I can also ask Zach too. If worst comes to worst, they could just like pay me, and then I can like pay Tiny Health, and I can probably write it off as an expense. So yeah. So we're hoping to do that within the week. I also made a note here, which I didn't do, that I was going to reach out to Mohammed, the person I just mentioned, and also Andra, again, who worked at that lab that made that solution. I haven't heard back from her, so I'm just going to reach out to her again, and then maybe just reach out to Mohammed just to ask if he knows any labs who do this test, even though we're still going to do Tiny Health. But if we continue, maybe we get all this data and we want to do more and So I'm going to do that. And yeah, so that's it for that. Everyone's cool. And then TFT webpage, I have not worked anything on that. After I finish this grant thing, then I'm going to help work on the text and then Deb was supposed to help us with making the webpage. And then once all that is done, we're going to send a whole mailer out announcing TFT live stream and then TFT radio show. Orión, you look like you're going to say something.
No, I just remembered something else. There's something I have to share when it's time. So I just also confirmed that CRISPR is not virus, it's bacteria. Which goes back to the same question ultimately, but
well, now I'm like, what's the difference between bacteria and virus? I guess a bacteria
is alive.
Because it can reproduce on its own. And did you have any more updates on your Ripple tank?
Well, yeah, the actual O was that I have put the donation cube prototype on the web. It works better it works best on like a tablet. And it crashes the iPhone browser. And like also it goes into night mode when it's nighttime. It follows what I haven't looked at this during the daytime with that not in dark mode, so I didn't realize how ugly it is. But it works also. And right now this is broken. Oh no! This is broken. Okay. If you change it, I had fixed this bug earlier, but now it's back. Where if you change one face, then everything gets broken. So,
but this is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like if you're playing with it, it helps to make a long swipe across. Like the further you go, the more likely it is to get the direction right. That's that. Otherwise on the Ripple tank, yeah, I got my I got the thing from eBay. I'll share some videos. I was like the really thrilling thing is here in this slow motion video. So it looks like this. I like the rods, the dipper sticks are not there, so I had to
The
figure out my own
chopsticks.
way to do it. I put chopsticks in just to test it out, and plugged it in. And this is slow motion, so you can see how like they can go totally out of phase, alternating, and then you can, if you keep turning the knob, they go in phase, and they dip together. So that's what I didn't want to implement myself, and then I figured out like a way that I could do it if I wanted to. But I'm really happy to have this thing. Oh yeah, another thing I did this weekend was I found a discarded printer on the street, and I took it apart for the parts that it has, and so I like swapped out. So because the motor in the one that I got from you was very, very loud, but this motor from a printer is like whisper quiet. It's very nice, and so I have a new motor in it. I'm working on. I've ordered like the smallest diameter rod I could find to make it here, and then I'm gonna make that into the dipper rod soon, and like just this. I took this apart and oiled it so like it always works, and I put a new drive belt on this thing that I made out of part of the printer. So I have this sort of stapled together. But I've really gotten to know this apparatus, and oh yeah, because I had initially gotten steel rods to be the thing, but they're so heavy they actually keep the dipper from working. The weight keeps the dipper from working at all, because it's just always in the down place. So I've gotten aluminum rods now that are hollow also, so they will be light enough for me to get some kind of ball shape in the end to start dipping.
Wait, what's the part that you're waiting for? What?
Okay, so DC motors have two ways of being controlled. You can control them just by giving them different amounts of voltage. So I'm looking for a motor to hold it. Like with any DC motor, the more volts you give to it, the faster it goes. But it's like not very precise, and like I don't actually have a way to linearly control the voltage of a thing. I have like, oh, let me show you this. This is I'm really proud of. So I have all these various AC/DC adapters that have like a plug like this, right? They go into your drill, your clock radio, whatever. But in order to get wires to that, I just happened to find this helpful adapter that goes from that kind of plug to a 9-volt battery outlet. So I just soldered these wires to this 9-volt battery thing. So like this is my power source for these things. And then
You can just do that. You can just like solder it and then it works. It's so trippy.
This is some of the fun of playing electronics. So like now I have, let's see, what do I have? Okay, and then I have a 9-volt. So this is a 9-volt wall plug for a thing. And you can see when I plug it in, it will start to move the thing. And like, oh yeah, you can see that little oscillation is the thing. Yeah, and it's you can't hear it because it's so nice and quiet. And then this knob moves this little differential gear in there. But so like this is the speed it'll go, and then if I get a 12-volt wall plug, it will go faster. If I do a 6-volt wall plug, it'll go slower. But what I want to be able to do is have a knob. So this is my circuit board of my prototype right now. I want to have a knob that will, like, when you turn this knob, it should make this motor go faster or slower. And I don't have that yet, so I can't do that until I have this transistor, because like I have in playing with this 12-volt. So there's this transistor on here that like is what the thing that does the switching of the signal to like tell the motor like how fast to go. But these get so hot, I have like completely melted a hole into one of these breadboards. I have seen smoke coming out from another one of these transistors. So it's just too damn hot for these like tiny little baby transistors that are made for LEDs. So I'm getting a beefier one. Then I'll be able to control the speed. And the other thing I've been doing, I managed to get some lenses that are working for focusing the light. So I'm like working towards being able to like have lights focused in a stable way on the ripple tank itself. And I'm starting to think about what like a sequence of color for that thing to sort of fade through to be interesting. But I probably won't really be executing on that until I have the general setup set up.
Mhm. Did you teach yourself all of this stuff?
Yeah, me and YouTube.
That's so cool.
Also, they like Arduino is a really, really fun platform for making stuff. Like it's where is it? I don't know if I'm gonna, oh, it's on one browser. Oh, do you care? There's like some really good tutorials, like that take you through step by step. Like here, plug in one LED and make it blink, and then it gets increasingly elaborate. So,
It's so nice that people make these videos.
yeah. It really is. Yeah. So here's like I've been basically working through this curriculum. After ordering the starter kit from this website, like, yeah, make an LED blink, and like one resistor and an LED, and then power, and like then make an RGB LED and make it play all kinds of different colors. Here's how to do 8 LEDs, where you need a little integrated circuit thing, and then getting into making sounds and powering it. This didn't come with the LCD display, so I haven't been able to do this one, but DC motors. When I took apart the printer, I found a stepper motor as well. So sometime I'll be playing with a stepper motor because I'm thinking about that. Oh, and then there's one more thing, drop controller. There are these people who just like to take photographs of water droplets and like like hitting each other and stuff. So these are like mid-air collisions of water and like different colored water and different colored lighting, and it's a hobby that people have.
Water drop photography made easy.
Yeah. And like I'm thinking about look at some of these really, really lovely ripples also, right?
Yeah, they're very mushroomy.
And like there's the wave interference patterns, but then there's also just like this like one drop at a time. And so I'm interested in getting this. There's like this little valve. Yeah, it's actually, this is the one I want to get. This is a valve and bottle set, because you just need a bottle of water, a valve to do one drop at a time, and like a way to set it up. And so with this, I could also start doing like I could do like I want to. The thing is, like the waves from my homemade ripple tank wave generator were so fast that it was like kind of not a peaceful experience. And trying to find ways to make it a peaceful experience. I like having slower drips and like one drop at a time, or like at least having the option of one drop at a time. So the drop controller is one way of doing that, and then a stepper motor. Stepper motor just like moves one, like can move the motor just a little bit, so I can do like one drop, one like very, very slowly, do like different dips, and that's something I'm hoping to get to eventually.
Wait, that's going to be part of the ripple tank?
What's gonna be part of the
So
tank?
the drop controller is going to be part of the ripple tank or separate.
It's, I don't know. Yeah, I like yes or no,
Mhm.
one or the other.
Mm.
Like I've thought about like a, a whole. Do you know about the Rain Room? This installation that there was in London where like it was big black box room with I guess some light so you could see. See if I can find it. And it like detected people. I was at the moment. It detects when people are walking and it stops raining on them when you walk under it. So like you go into this room where it's constantly raining, but you don't get rained on, basically. And is that the only picture I have?
So you can walk anywhere in the room and it would stop raining where you're standing.
Yeah. So like it detects people and shuts off the little valves, I guess. Is how I remember. It's because it's hard to see in pictures. But
Interesting.
so I've been thinking about kind of a ripple tank version of this where like where the room is where the tank is a miniaturized sort of proxy for the room.
Mhm.
And so anywhere there's a person standing in the room, there is a dripper dripping onto them. And so what you're seeing like the pattern of all the people in the room like interacting and the chaos of that. So like a lot, like if there's too many people in the room, it does become just like a rain tank. But like as two people if there's two people in the room and they're moving around, like you start to see like the drips are sort of representing them and I don't know. I think that could be interesting to see. And that's one
Yeah,
of the
that's interesting.
applications I'm thinking of for
Uh-huh.
this drop by drop solenoid.
One thing that I've been curious about throughout you creating this project is if there are different within the situation of waves superpositioning and diffracting, if there are different kind of elements or stages of that situation that in the ways that we are that our TFT is a diffractive apparatus, if there are ways that waves can illustrate different different elements of that situation and we can focus on like a constructive superposition, a canceling out superposition, like the ways that in our visual experience of this ripple tank we can focus in on and therefore attempt to emphasize that element of a diffractive situation. That can be a place for us to be, that can be a media to help shape, to help model what we seek or attempt to do with each other, be that in this TFT, be that in TFT3. That's one thing that's been on my mind, and I'm reminded of it by what you were wondering, Orión, with the droplets representing people's positions.
I really like the feeling of it, and I don't know how to apply it in space.
I'm gonna keep chewing on it.
Yes, please do. There are moments listening to you, and I saw Orión, you also like there's a moment where you're like, and then I was like, wait, I'm not really sure if I'm responding to exactly what David's saying, but it's like stimulating a lot of like very exciting kind of visions or like ideas or connections. Yes. I love this.
Do you want to share anything about the Entangler's brain versions? Is that even something you can speak to?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it because, I mean, first of all, I was like really excited about it because it's like, well, like Orión, when you started sharing about the people, you know, like how like maybe similar to like the rain room or something, it's like it's also about an interaction with something that's outside of the apparatus, or like not, you know, like with people. So like that kind of connection to, like, there's an apparatus that you're making with a Ripple tank, and of course there's like a lot of players in that, but something about it then connecting with, so like people, or like some kind of social something. I like that, is exciting to me. And then David, when you were sounded like, or how I was kind of interpreting what you're saying, that got me excited was that like it like I don't even know, I feel like similar to Orión when you said like there's lots of feelings but can't like articulate it, or maybe like, but I saw, okay, this is what it, okay, I'm excited by projects, I think, that like somehow engage with our lived experiences, and our social kind of experiences as like people, and things that are, so I like that kind of like using the Ripple tank, or like connecting the Ripple tank, that. And then what I was hearing from David was like that it's like could become some kind of, yeah, like a diffractive apparatus of like maybe the different, you know, the different kind of things that are part of the diffraction apparatus somehow correspond to this group, maybe each of us or something, or different. I didn't see, this is, I have a really huge loss of words today. All these words are not quite correct. So if you're watching this live or in as an archive, just, you know, keep that in mind. I'm, you know, not using words well, but I was imagining that it could become like, and maybe this is going to lead into our conversation about data visualization. Yeah, like a way of visualizing some interactions, like seeing a visualization of our diffractive apparatus, if like we're like assigning certain whatever to certain ripples, or, you know, whatever, then we might be able to see some kind of visual or performative thing with that could do something. That's the best I got.
Can we segue to a conversation about data visualization? Would y'all prefer reading directly through the text first, or it feels very natural to me to?
Let's go.
As I was verbalizing that like little idea, I was wondering about how much this is, just how that fits into the data visualization, to my judgments around data visualization and the different uses of it. And I was realizing that what I was sharing, I judge it as having meaningful impact on our social interaction, our social, what we can do socially, what it enables socially. And for example, having a visualization that can help us realize what it is to be a diffractive apparatus with intention, and in a way that then meaningfully impacts what we're able to do with whatever we are diffracting in our conversation. And thinking about like I think that's honestly what's been going on under the surface that I haven't realized, in what discontentment I've vocalized around data visualization and the meaningfulness of it, is whenever we're interacting with the visualization, how meaningfully it then shapes us, and that there is data visualization, that in claiming to reflect an accurate situation, an actual reality, eliminates complexity and then shapes our interaction with that visualization then leads us to see reality as less complicated and like smoother, and there's data visualization, for example, the water dropping on people's positions. I'm imagining this in the context of like the sorts of, I don't know, I associate it with what I've seen what I see at like natural science and children's museums, where it's like it encourages play in a certain way, where I'm seeing my impact on the world represented in a different way, and then I'm seeing my ability to kind of shape what's happening. I think there are other things that this does, that this idea that you voiced does, Orion, and I just also thought of this other association that I have with this sort of playful, scientific based visualizations of things. And all that said, with data visualization, for creating a visual, it's not, it doesn't accurately represent anything, and it does shape people's interaction with the visualization, shapes what they're understanding and their actions and stuff. And maybe what matters to me at the base of it is whether the response to the visualization feels particularly meaningful, or like it helps realize the sort of social situations that I want to live in, versus ones that feel like they that feel reductive or like they're misrepresenting an element of the world that's very important to me, that feels important to represent in its fullness, or something like that. That's not super connected to the Barad stuff. I wonder if in any of y'all's minds it does connect back to it, but it does get at kind of what's at the core of it to me, I think.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Like, that was really well stated and helped me.
I slept so much today, Entangler.
Yes, yeah, all of what you said, definitely. When I brought up this discussion about data visualization, some people have said, like, I don't know, got me to question what data visualization is. I actually don't know. And then I started getting like worried that I was using it incorrectly. But I just looked it up now, and like data visualization is like charts and graphs and diagrams of data. Is that the kind of like where it came from? And has it expanded beyond that to be like stuff that like maybe David you're referencing, or when I say the quantum physics dance or something, like, is that considered data visualization, or am I using that term in a way that is not usually used? Do you know?
I think both is my association.
Okay.
The data visualization dance, I mean, I always understood exactly what you meant. So there's the generic definition of data visualization, or the textbook definition, but then there's how artists and creators and social thinkers and people in the humanities might be using the techniques of data visualization. So I think I think that you're using it appropriately in our context.
I've forgotten what if the quantum physics dance, is it like an interpretation of quantum interactions, or is it actually like based in data, like which is the only. I still, yeah, I agree with Charlotte. I definitely understood what you meant, and I think it's a valid point. I don't know whether, like, whether including it under the label of data visualization and enhances our discussion of data visualization in a sense, because like taking measurements of phenomena and representing them in a way to like to make a to argue for a particular point of view is kind of how I think of effective data visualization. Like presupposes that you're trying to have an effect, right? Like there's an intention and an effect you're trying to make happen. And I think again, I think the quantum physics dance wants to have effect as well. But is it an interpretation of theory versus a portrayal of, like, if they got data from the super collider at CERN and use that to drive the dance, that'd be quite interesting.
That's, the also, now I feel bad about the quantum physics, poo-pooing on the quantum physics dance, because I actually don't know anything about it. It's just like something that I think I read in a CERN like newsletter or something really quickly, and then it was also the period when I was like trying to get that residency, so I was like, I just want to just do quantum physics dances. So now I'm looking it up to see, but how I interpreted it was they were using data that they were getting from CERN. I'm not sure what kind of data it is, and then taking that data to then make a dance. That's what did you find it? Oh. But this is also maybe a question that could also be talked through in terms of, for example, using the gut data to make music. Maybe that's a similar thing, but I'm curious, Orión, how you're saying, like, if it's the data, if it is making a dance out of the data, then you think that is doing something. I'm like curious what that thing is. I also think it is doing something too. I just am being a little grouchy about it.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know enough about that particular thing to know. Like, I think probably the dance is trying to have either a response or, I think best case from my perspective would be give people a visceral understanding of something that has been a very heady cognitive space. That would be I think a good purpose, a good effect of a quantum physics dance.
I also found something about it here on the CERN called quantum leaps. But so it's like about so like what it does is it enables or opens up a different relationship for the public, I guess, to have with, like, for example, like gut data or quantum physics data. And what that relationship is, or like, what is that? I mean, maybe it's enough that it's just like, oh, it's like an attempt or emerging, of like science and the arts or something.
Right.
Which
seems like how CERN is treating.
One thing I wonder, but Charlotte, were you kind of gonna say something there? Okay. If you want to be typing it out. Yeah, cool. There was it in this chapter, is this where Newtonian science viewpoint is described as like understanding a fixed state of the world and just trying to further and further develop an understanding of how the world is? Or is that something that's maybe that's just something that's come up elsewhere for us?
It's in this chapter.
Okay. It's in this chapter. So there, whereas what's being kind of described and proposed is an understanding of the world that is constantly in formation. And so there's a way to visualize a situation that is for the sake of understanding that situation as, you know, if only we all just understood the world better. There's also a way to visualize a situation that also knows that that visualization is going to reshape the world. And that can be, I think that's another thing underlying a gripe that I have is towards like just science should be understood because it should be understood, you know, like that being some sort of moralization around like increased understanding of scientific concepts. There might be ways that plays into this Newtonian framing that is the world is this fixed state that we can just develop a greater and greater understanding of. When we make data visualizations, we can also be intentional about what impact they will have and how that will shape the world differently than what is being represented in the data itself, or in the data in that situation, in that context.
So are you saying, like, as long as we attend to how the data visualization is also a world making thing, like it's producing certain knowledges or okay, wait, as okay, let me see if
yeah.
So it's just, like, one is kind of like just like giving information in a way that's easily kind of maybe understood or something, right? And seeing it as like, oh, it's just innocent or something, or like it's just like just transferring this data and not really attending to how, like, I don't know, the colors or whatever, or the shapes, or like how it's visualized and what, you know, the fonts or what all the, you know, are producing some kind of knowledge or drawing from something. And so like if we, for example, we go on this whole data visualization thing, we make a bunch of data, and if we attend to then how that is also a subject, or like producing knowledges or producing, then that would be okay, or like, okay.
Just it's more interesting in my, like, for me, it's more interesting. And it also furthers our understanding and our learning about both this quantum perspective of our reality and empowers us to shape our reality in this sphere as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can attend to the details that might make yeah
totally yeah. So like now I'm thinking about that rain room. I'm curious, like, what, you know, like the rain room is cool, you know, like I'm like, on one hand I'm like interested in the technology and like how does it sense, like, and like what's the experience. I'm sure like the sensory experience would be very interesting. And then to take what you're saying, David, about that, the data visualization would be that room within a museum, within an art kind of context. Wait, I didn't even know if that's data visualization now that I'm using it as an example, a possible example.
I'm thinking about a couple of channels of thinking about offering ways to think, like offering modes of analysis, ways of understanding, versus offering or imposing. I'm trying to suggest like concrete beliefs to believe, or like knowledge is like specific knowledge to take on. One example is in teaching syntax in linguistics classes. Like Noam Chomsky's like approach to syntax has been like it's like commonly understood among all the other branches of linguistics that like syntax is ruled by Chomsky like in a dictatorial way, and that like there's like just this goal that there will be like one unified universal grammar that is true for everything, and like like in a very sort of Newtonian way of just like we can find this mathematically pure way of describing syntax and language, and it's the kind of like a prime example of how some scientific progress is made by people dying, and like people being able to being like younger people with less closed minds being able to take up the work and like see new possibilities. And so like a lot of places, like when I learned syntax in my linguistics program, like they weren't teaching us like this is what the consensus of the Chomsky group is. They were teaching us like, here's how you do a syntactic analysis. Like, let's just start, here, like, let's just think of ways of describing this. And so like the course, the first semester of the course was all like from first principles, like, starting with just like a subject is a noun and a verb, like building up this whole, like having us collectively construct a syntactic analysis to describe English, I guess, that like we as a class considered to. So it was like this very like counter, like democratic approach to like this is how a healthy functioning scientific community would negotiate these issues of syntax if they were not ruled by a dictator. And it's like kind of just like preparing future syntacticians for that future where it's possible to have a democratic process. And the case of syntax happens to be one where there's like there are enough people, like there's enough dissent, there are enough free thinkers that people are like able to even envision that future. There's so many other sciences as we we see in all of the feminist science studies, like where that unified Cartesian Newtonian, like there is a single determinate truth, pre-existing fact about the world, pre-existing determinate boundary between subject and object, knowledge is true beliefs, like all of that stuff. Like that's what all the other sciences are trying to do too. So of course Chomsky's trying to do that. And back to are like so many visualizations I think are trying to tell you like what to think, even as often they're like their initiating intent was to tell you, was like to offer ways of like a variety of ways of understanding things, but like the more you refine what you're presenting, the more you constrain how you can interpret it differently.
And you mentioned data visualization that offers or invites other ways of understanding versus those that say this is the way of understanding. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of, I mean, in some ways this feels like we can be coming up with what our principles or ethics around visualizing representing information or data is. That's one of the qualities. Another one can be like tending to the impacts of the visualization or representation, having the qualifier that the data and information was from a specific time and place that no longer, or like that is changed, things like that.
Mm. Mm. So it's like focusing on the processes, the process, the ways in which we connect or make decisions, as opposed to like having some like, oh, here in TFT we do this thing and we're going to share the results of this thing. Instead, it would be like something where we would share our process and how we have arrived at that thing.
Because in sharing the process, it is describing how it was a situation or a phenomenon. In describing the process, we are describing that this is not a universal truth or a thing that applies to everything. Instead, it's something that arose from our circumstances. That is that. No, never mind.
Or that's what I was getting from what Orión was sharing about the syntax, like focusing on how, like now, like when you're like, oh, let's just like start from the beginning. What's a noun and a verb? And then I was like, instead of being like, this is the way that the syntax is according to Noam Chomsky, and we're gonna like just teach you that. It's more like, okay, like how do we identify a noun? How do we identify a verb? How are they connected? What are they doing with each other? Like that kind of stuff. Is that what you're talking about? And then that's what the focus of the class was, or the approach of the class of learning syntax.
Yeah, from beyond noun and verbs, we also had to define new, like when we encountered new grammatical categories, we had to come up with new names for them and new mechanisms and stuff. It was really, really wonderful. But the thing is, of course, I think what I'm hearing in your sort of attempt at describing this ethic is like, or the first thing I was thinking was, it's like we just show the bare phenomena, right? Like the ripple tank just shows the wave interaction, and like where like in the semester of the syntax class, you end up with like a very a thing that is the accretion of so many phenomena, so many instances of things happening that like it is, I could show you any of my syntax homework from the end of that class, and like it would not make sense to anybody, unless you've taken the class. And like where I think there's a beauty to showing bare phenomena. I think there is also like there is space for the more complicated or complex like interactions of things that like are based on multiple observations, and some analysis of the observations of like showing your work, and like I think in some ways that's what science is supposed to be, is describing the phenomena and showing your work. But it's like but the foundation of it is so is so deep that you need a PhD before you can even read the paper that is talking about the thing.
Yeah, totally. So there is like also, a need for the simplification or like a rubric or some kind syntax. Oh my God, is that the word that we're using? Syntax homework that we wouldn't understand it. So there is like also a need for that, right? Especially because like, you know, I know that stuff, or not everyone does. But that's if we want it to be shared, right? And kind of accessible to people, then this kind of like synthesis or summation or of the process is useful. Is it sometimes? I mean, I think it is. I think it is useful because we live in a world in which that's how we exist. And like, I think, I mean, we can move towards this other thing, but like right now, I do think that, yeah, like I would need a little rubric or some kind of data visualization to understand like your syntactical homework.
I think I'm thinking about showing your work and like the places where you can show your work and like making that compelling, or making that compelling is an interesting way to even think about it. Like, what is the compulsion what are you compelling when work is compelling?
Yeah, I wonder if I'm having like a struggle with just like thinking about, sometimes I can get like I don't know, maybe it's like an existential type of crises type thing of like, what are we do, you know, like should we just abandon all like forms of representation? Or like I think that about with art, you know, like why am I an artist that is, you know, like I question this a lot about like showing in galleries and museums. If I like, what's the purpose? What's the compulsion there? What is it that why, you know, like for like the example, like all my sex adventures and kink and like trying to figure out how to make a piece, like is so hard and upsetting to me because it does. And then someone in process group said like, oh yeah, because the work is you like the work is you doing it, you know, that's where the work is. And I'm like, yes, that is where the work is. And I guess it becomes, and I guess what happens for me is like I'm so like I'm learning so many life lessons, like oh my God, so like I'm like everyone should do kink, and so that's the compulsion, to like share it, yeah, and be like and then I become like Chomsky, and then I'm like, you all should do kink, and this is why, you know, I'm like, and I can do that. I can be very like that. I mean, the whole revolution is like this, you know, it's like the Bay is like this. It's like, you know, being excited about something working for me and then being like, it should work for everyone, and I'm not going to make the thing, you know.
Or Charlotte types, sounds like the syntax homework is greater than the sum of its parts. And yeah.
You know, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. So now I'm like back on the data visualization is okay. I think maybe I just need to accept that part of myself, you know.
Oh, actually, that brings me to this other thought I've been sort of wanting to bring in, which I'd like, you know, it's one thing to offer an interpretation, it's another thing to impose that interpretation. And I haven't really read this entire paper. Really just blank that again. Here's the link to the JSTOR of it, because anyone you can, with a free JSTOR account, you can read 100 papers a month.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you can't download them. You can only like read them on the thing,
Jesus.
on the website. But this is 27. This, you know, 10 years after the book came out, these people like wrote this paper about like kind of unpacking what is, you know, a pretty a nice definition of agential realism, and like sort of talking about the impact that their work has had. Like this is the citations for various Barad works.
Oh my God, data
in the years since-
visualization.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but they get into.
That's amazing. Did you read this whole thing?
No, I haven't. I probably will. I think now that I'm bringing it up, I pressed just a little bit. Like, they're kind of talking about the sort of, where is it? The Barad is unimpressed with reflexivity. In its place, they, via Haraway, suggest diffraction as a methodology in order to understand. Let's see. Basically, they're saying like, why is there no diffractive methodology? And yeah. Perhaps ironically, here it is. Barad does not seem to be too attentive to difference where reflexivity is concerned. Like people have talked about the ways that reflexivity, can be useful. Like this like discarding a reflexivity as even a possibility is like not diffractive in that it sort of doesn't allow us to attend to the differences between what does reflexivity show us and what does diffraction or other things show us.
Totally.
So,
I had the same thought reading that too. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
oh, like poo-poo on reflexivity, like for reflexivity. It's not very diffractive.
And that paper cites like other feminist technoscience scholars who make great use of reflexivity, and I think it's the reason I've been thinking about bringing it up is the way I think sometimes we have a tendency to like dogmatically want to impress Barad by being their like most attentive and agreeable students or something, and like I think we can impress ourselves better by taking what is useful and from wherever it comes from, like, and being diffractive. Use diffraction and use reflection.
Yeah, I have to like actively remind myself to do that when I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with diffraction or reflection, or there's nothing wrong with beliefs. They're not bad. I have to like tell myself that, or else. And I think when it gets like that is because there's like a dominance of it, right? There's a dominance of a certain something that becomes like truths or something, become naturalized as truths. And so I think as long as we are attentive to that, attentive to when things feel like they're dominating or something, in this way that is producing subjects that are like that we're not consenting to, then it's like time to attend to that or something. But I'm like, I would like to be at a place where like everything's kind of on the table for us to kind of like engage with because it exists.
I got this.
How is it?
I haven't. I read some of it. It was my college library had it a few years ago, and so I read some of it then. And it's definitely going to be too dense theory wordsy for me to get into, at least deeply, soon. But I was looking through it to find the bit where Donna Haraway takes that bit about reflexivity, and it seems like this book goes like, what is it? My invented category of semantics, diffractions, takes advantage of the optical metaphors and instruments that are so common in Western philosophy and science. Then comes the bit that Karen Barad kind of excerpted. And so not only, I mean, just all to say, this book does go further in writing through ways that diffraction can be used as a semantic or whatever practice. I don't know. I think it could be useful for us. And so if I get around to it, or if anybody else is curious, I'll send scans and whatnot.
Yes,
Yeah, please do.
I'm excited about this disentangling Brad too.
Yeah, me too. Can we get the text, or do we just have to read it on here? Oh, you're muted.
I have to read it on there, or depending on your institutional affiliation, there might be you might be able to download the PDF. I don't know how they do it. I don't know who has what.
Just log in through your school or library. Oh, maybe I have access to it. Look into that. In our last 10 minutes, I'm like wondering, and then like this conversation has gotten me like, oh, what? Like, I want to come up, I want to make our diffraction thing, you know, like, I don't know what that is, or like, I don't know, maybe I'm just tired, but I feel like, I'm like, what is it that, like, you know how we started talking about bringing our full selves in here? And like, it's like this conversation and me kind of like stumbling or like feeling like, what is it? Like, I feel kind of like not, I don't know, is it like not, like I feel very disorganized or something. And so it's like making me want to have like a process, like we're working on our process or like principles and our which is feels like it's like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Is everything, this is fine with everyone? What we're doing?
I don't know that I could articulate what we're moving towards.
Do you want, is that something you would want?
In the long term, even the medium term, I think an articulation of our purpose is more important than even a moving towards. And I think I feel better equipped to articulate a purpose, but I also don't know that, going back to sort of stuff Samuel said, I don't think each of us have the same purpose. So like, what is our shared purpose, I think would be, I don't even know if useful is the word, like, but aligning, or like a baseline understanding. Why are you here? Why are we here?
Do people want to share that before we leave? I'm like so curious, like why, yeah, like why are you each here and what you're hoping to.
I propose that being us, that being a focus next time. I have a hard time like having that sort of reflective clarity after a long conversation, and an idea that I have is like for myself, reflecting on maybe kind of clarifying before leaving today, clarifying a bit what to reflect on, but it doesn't seem hard to go from what Orión said to what that clarified kind of prompt would be. And /or doing one of the things that I really like doing and facilitating is like group reflection activities, where like if it sounds like we can check in next TFT and see if this is something that would feel good for everyone then too. But it would be like a lot of quiet time of us like writing and sorting through thoughts in the moment together, however much that's been something that we've already sorted through leading up to it, in order to kind of create a little bit of a foundation for conversation about it. That I'd love that.
I love that too so much. So this is something that you facilitate. Is it would you call it a group reflection activity?
It's just in school, for me, my engineering degree, there was a lot of focus on pedagogy, and I did my like research mentor was very into contemplative modes of teaching and learning in higher education. And so all this, I mean, that's like the thing that I'm most, that's like coolest, like I'm most a fan of like what I developed and learned throughout school was like teaching and learning techniques, and especially ones that are like slow or feel like deeply connecting and stuff like that. It's yeah.
Are you saying that you would need, if we all agree that we would like this, that you would need, it's like a build up to that, did you say? Or
it could just, an agenda item for next week could be like reflection and an agenda item of discussion. And it's just that the reflection time would be sometimes people aren't in the mood to have like lots of silence or non-talking time when they're instead like writing in their journal or something. But if everybody's down for the latter of like a lot of time or like half an hour or 15 minutes or 10 minutes of like thinking and writing in the journal and then sharing out, then that's the sort of speed and style that I enjoy facilitating.
would you be down to do that the next one? Is everyone down for that? I would love that so much.
I'm done.
Cool.
Okay, so I put daily facilitate group activity. That's 2-part, which is like reflection and then discussion.
Yeah.
And then is also the prompt of like why are you here and what are your goals in TFT? Is that part of is that the question that we're going to be reflecting on? Okay, cool. Love it. How much time would you want for that?
I feel like when like today, it was nice to see in the agenda, like it felt maybe, what do y'all think of like an hour devoted to this conversation next week?
I'm
Okay.
so down. Love it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna put that 1 hour. So it'll be not next week, but the week after. However, next week we're gonna make player cards in Rev School. If
Cute.
you want, if you who wants to make a player card, we're gonna have a little player card play session, which I've been wanting because I want to update my card really bad. And oh yeah, what are we gonna do about the reading? Like, should we try to like finish the chapters? Should we move, should we go on to another?
I've been trying for a while.
I still want to do the TFTs because I think they're so, I don't know. What do you think after having reviewed the TFT one, Orión? Do you think it's,
I think
there's a
we
lot
definitely
there.
should.
Yeah, there's
there's a
so
lot
much
there.
in there.
I even think it connects to David's like facilitation as well. Like, well, there's stuff in there that is why we are here. I'm sure as well.
So should we do something like an hour with David and then like leading us into starting to go through TFT? And then ditch the last few pages of this, or
Oh, we had, we last time we came together, I remember bringing up like different ways to discuss the TFT because it's such an immense thing, but we're at time and it's not on the top of my mind. There are just specific like kind of approaches we could take to doing like book clubby sort of conversation around TFT. But I don't know how to approach that next time.
Maybe we could do that next week. You know, like next week we'll do the reflection and we can talk about like how to approach going through the TFTs. And then if we have time, we can do the last few pages of this, if it something like that. Yeah.
It's not gonna happen, but yeah.
Okay. It's over. That chapter is done. I wonder if River's ever gonna watch these ever before they like die or something. I don't know. No, it's just like, just because it's like so like it is because we talk about them so much. And then curious how they would feel about it.
It makes me think of like the idea of like editing down the TFT, like TFT1 and TFT2 to be more digestible, but then we'd edit these like these little TFTs to just be like the like summary for River of like like
Oh god.
cool.
River is the diffraction apparatus that we're using to edit the, the TFTs.
Good hang, y'all.
Yeah, I love hanging with you all. It's really nice.
Me too.
Cool. We'll maybe see some of you next week for player cards.
Yeah.
And then the week after that, we'll do the David facilitation. Yay. Wait, how do you make the heart this way?